go ahead and get things started. Followed by, I think it's Dr. Bart Alplinall, and then Jim Harms. So the agreement is that questions are acceptable during the presentation. We'd ask that you be direct and succinct to the point for the sake of time. And after about 20 minutes or so, we're going to move on to the next section of the presentation. Paul, can you raise your hand? Paul is going to be running the mic, and so we want your voice to be heard. So please wait for the mic to speak. With that, we're going to go ahead and get things started. Would you please welcome our panel today?
Thanks, Peter. I'm batting leadoff today. I'm Brett Buckley. I'm the judge of Thurston County's Veterans Court, which was Washington State's first Veterans Court, one of the, I think we were 8 or 9 Veterans Court in the country. Got started 9 years ago, and I'll describe in a few minutes what Veterans Court is about, but since this is a group that works with veterans, and by the way, thank you all for the work that you do through my job as the judge of a Veterans Court. The work that you do, I recognize as being really important to the lives of those veterans who find themselves involved in the justice system. And it's access to you that we are really trying to encourage through Veterans Court. One of the things I've learned in being the judge of a Veterans Court is that, and it's obvious, it's important to know the culture and to have a sense of the culture of the people that you're going to be having in the courts. So I'm a veteran myself. I, however, was a JAG officer, so a lot of you would say, that's not a veteran. And I understand that. Heck, my hair was longer in the Army than it is now. But my dad was in the Army. He was a professor at West Point, and he told me Mary Forbes was his best student ever. His dad was in the Army. I had 2 brothers that graduated from West Point. I had a sister that did 2 tours in Iraq, and my daughter, who is now a JAG officer for 1st Special Forces Group, recently spent a week in the garden spot of northern Syria. So I do have some understanding of the culture. I think it's genetic with me. That being said, it's not essential that the judge have that background, because I think that of the veterans courts we have in the state, there are 2 of us that are veterans, and I think the rest of the courts don't have veterans as judges. But that doesn't keep them from being effective and from providing a great service to our veterans. So I say that because what I'm really going to try to do with my time here is to, one, explain a little bit about what veterans courts are, and then advertise to those of you who are in jurisdictions where there are not veterans courts why I think it's really important that you start working with your community to try to get a veterans court created. So that will be my mission today. So what are veterans courts? Veterans courts are essentially, we call them therapeutic treatment courts. They are a diversion court. So a veteran gets arrested for committing a crime. In Thurston County, what happens is they get, we get them identified, and there are a whole bunch of ways, but it happens immediately at booking into the jail. The officers are trained to look for it. The staff in the jail are trained to look for it. The lawyers are trained to ask for it. And there's, I think, an awareness in Thurston County about the court. So family members will call and say, my wife, my husband, my brother, my son got arrested. Can we look and see if they're eligible for Veterans Court? So it sort of becomes this referral process this way. And I will tell you that one of the things I hear a lot when I go to talk to counties and cities where they do not have a Veterans Court is, well, you're down near JBLM, obviously you have lots of veterans, But, for example, those of us in King County, we just don't have nearly as many veterans. And that's exactly what I heard because I was asked to come up and speak to the King County Council a number of years ago before they had a Veterans Court. And the King County Council, their question to me was, why would we do it? Because you're adjacent to JBLM and we're this, we're not even in a contiguous county. And I said, well, you're going to have more veterans in King County than all the rest of us combined. About 10% of your jail are veterans. And they then looked at it and found out, oh yes, that is in fact correct. It was actually more than 10%. And they have a huge veterans population, and now they have a Veterans Court in King County and a Veterans Court in the city of Seattle. So, no matter where you are, any county in the state, you're going to have veterans in your jail. I guarantee it. And if you have veterans in your jail, then there's a different way to treat them than treating them like the normal member of that population. So, in Thurston County, you commit a crime, you get identified as a veteran. We then look to see if you have any diagnosed mental illness. And for veterans, it's typically going to be post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. And we look to see whether that diagnosed mental illness was a contributing factor to the crime. There has to be what we call in the legal world a nexus between that diagnosis and the commission of the crime. Not only that, but we then have to evaluate whether your military service is related to your diagnosed mental illness. So if you had a mental illness, if you had bipolar disease before you entered the military, and the commission of the crime is related to your bipolar disease, you're not going to be eligible for Veterans Court because your bipolar disease is not related to your service. You will be eligible for Thurston County's Mental Health Court, and I'm the judge for that as well. And we use the very same staff for that. So we can move you on one of two different tracks. And I've had veterans who are in mental health court for those very same reasons. And then obviously we have a full range of veterans in our Veterans Court. So if we make all those connections, if through our staff work we've decided that we have these connections, you then come into the court. And coming into the court means that you come in and you plead guilty for the offense that you've committed. So you're going to have to accept responsibility for that you have done. Now, this is totally up to the defendant. They are not forced to do this. This is something they say, yes, I want to participate in court, and yes, I will acknowledge this is what I did. So if they didn't do it, they're not going to come into the court because they're not going to plead guilty. Now, the other person who has veto power over this is the prosecutor. The prosecutor can say, no, this person can't come into the court, even though they may be eligible to come into the court. And the reason that's important is because we need to maintain the commitment of the community to this program. And if we're allowing people into this diversionary court, and by diversionary I mean they are seeing me rather than seeing the DOC folks or seeing the jail staff because they're not in custody. They are coming into court rather than being held behind bars. So the community has a safety interest here. They want to make sure that we're not having people out of custody who shouldn't be out of custody. So the prosecutor has veto power. So if we get past all those hurdles and they come into court, coming into court means they plead guilty, and then they start coming in on a regular basis. We hold court once a week, every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and if you want to visit, welcome any Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So we hold court for an hour, and you get scheduled. Initially, you're scheduled every week, and then as you progress through the program, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so on, and that, by the way, is a really good reward. People really like to have good behavior so that they can get extended because they get really annoyed having to see me all the time. And I can't understand that, but that's the way it is. And eventually, if you're going to go through 2 years of the program, and if at the end of 2 years you have met all your obligations, you're going to graduate from the program. And at that graduation, I'll describe that in a few minutes, we sort of cut the cord and say you've done a great job, and now you have the skills to get out there in the community and make of your life what you know you can. So how do we get to that point? One of the great things about Veterans Court, and one of the reasons those who or from jurisdictions that don't have one, you need to advocate for one, is the abundance of resources available to these courts. First of all, the Veterans Administration has created a position called the VJO, the Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator. And this person's job is to coordinate with every veterans court in their jurisdiction. And it is a fantastic position. So from the very beginning, we've had a representative from the VA at every single court session. So in fact, our first representative came down from the Seattle VA because, as I said, we were the first veterans court in the state. And he would drive every Wednesday through that horrendous traffic down I-5, down to Olympia, spend the afternoon with us, and then drive back after court. And it was an amazing commitment that he made. And he's now the VJO. I'm speaking of a guy named Kevin Devine. He's the VJO in King County and for Seattle. Now we have other VJOs, but they can connect our participants directly to the services at the VA. We get treatment reports on the spot. If somebody says, oh, by the way, my shoulder's hurting and I haven't been able to get in for that medical appointment, boom, they get it done. It is a great resource. So don't let that go by the boards. Get a veterans court so you can get that person there working with your veterans hands-on. We also have the WDVA at every single court session. WDVA does a great job. You know, I've had our very first participant was this young guy who had all the drug issues, and he had all the other issues, had lost his license, couldn't drive, all these sorts of things, and he found a job about 10 miles from his home. So what did the WDVA do? They bought him a bike and a rain suit, live in Olympia. And he rode his bike back and forth to work. I mean, they were great. They're so creative in the ways that they use their resources to help the folks, whether it's helping to pay, the deposit on getting a new apartment or whatever it is. They're great. And we have the Department of Employment Security. John Moisiak, who's here today. There he is. Moose. Those of you who know him, is a Marine. I once said he was a Marine, and he wouldn't talk to me for about 3 weeks. But John is a Marine, and he comes to our court and works with our participants on employment opportunities. And he's great, and they love it, and he's helped a lot of folks get that job. And that's a fantastic thing to be able to offer a criminal defendant sitting in your court. We also have, obviously one of the things that we're doing is making sure that folks get into their treatment. So we're going to be monitoring the treatment, but a lot of the treatment is either done through the VA or through the vet centers, and we have really great treatment providers. We're going to make sure we're testing them, by the way, so we're doing lots of UAs. We may put somebody on a SCRAM device. We're doing all that kind of thing. We're getting funding, by the way, for our SCRAM devices, which is really nice. SCRAM is an electronic monitor that you wear on your ankle that measures alcohol content of your perspiration, so we know if you're drinking. And hopefully we won't have to get to that point, but occasionally we do. Who else do we have coming to our court? Well, we have folks like in Thurston County, something called Rainier Therapeutic Riding. They come in and offer to our participants the opportunity to go out and spend time at a farm riding horses and taking care of horses and developing that relationship, which can be really therapeutic. We also have a running group that shows up every week and takes our folks out who are interested in walks. They say it's a run, but it's really a walk. Just getting outside and breathing and moving rather than sitting down all the time is really therapeutic. We also have something called Team Red, White, and Blue. They are active in the Pierce County, Thurston County area, and they come and they let all the participants know, the weekly schedule of their events. So there are lots of community members that are going to pitch in if you create a veterans court. So don't let that go by the boards. So what happens at graduation? Once you've completed your program, you make it all the way through. we do some things that are different than we typically do in courts. First of all, the whole court proceeding is really informal. So when you're called up to the table, you have a defense counsel there, there's a prosecutor there. We have 3 caseworkers on staff. They are masters in social work, and they are the keys to the program. They meet with these folks when they're not in court on a regular basis. And then we're going to go around the room, we're going to all pitch in, the defendant's going to have something to say, we're all going to have something to say, and we try to talk a lot about things not related to why they're in court. So we're going to talk about, hey, did you stay up till 12:30 last night to watch the Mariners beat the Red Sox? Awesome, huh? And we're going to talk about stuff like that, or about their book, or their music, or movies, or whatever it is, something just to get them to relax and let them know that we care about things other than their criminal history. And that really helps people get connected. So that's sort of a typical day, and we all, by the way, call everybody by their first name. And it's really interesting to watch a defendant call a prosecutor by his or her first name, because that's usually the enemy, that's the devil to a criminal defendant. And to watch that relationship build is really interesting. And then they call me by my first name, and my first name is Judge. But it works. So at the end, at our graduations, we do a couple things that I don't do in any other court, and I don't do it in mental health court because it's not appropriate. But when the defendant comes up for his graduation, we have a salute. And it's, to see 2 civilians saluting each other in a courtroom is kind of interesting, and they really take it seriously. And I practice mine beforehand, and I know they practice theirs because I don't see any sloppy salutes. And the other thing that happened is last year I was giving a Veterans Court presentation out at Evergreen State College, or a presentation on Veterans Day, and there were this group of women there, and they actually gave me, after the presentation, what's called a quilt of valor, because I was a veteran. And I thanked them for it, and I said, hey, I have a Veterans Court. Would you be interested in making these quilts for our graduates of the court? So now we have the Ruby Street Quilters from Tumwater show up at every single Veterans Court graduation and provide the defendant a quilt, a huge, queen-size quilt that they've made for each person. It has their name in it, and they're gorgeous, and it's really shows the community is going to accept these folks back in. It's a great message. So I had no idea this existed when we started it. But starting the court, these things come out of the woodwork. I didn't know about the writing program. I had no idea about the quilters. I didn't know about the running group. These things just happen. And I assure you that if you start a court in your county, these things will happen, because there are lots of people who want to help. Okay, so how do you start a court? Talk to a judge. And as I said, it doesn't have to be a judge who's a veteran, but if you know a judge who's a veteran, start there. But find a judge who will care. That's the biggest thing. Somebody who's going to have this interest in trying to do something different rather than locking people up. And then they're going to say, okay, fine, I'm interested, but how do I pay for it? And that's always a good question. That's always the first question. So my answer is, you'll find a way. We started it because I was a mental health court judge, and I had this lawyer who was really annoying and said he had just read about something started in Buffalo, New York, called the Veterans Court, and could we start one here? And I kept putting him off and saying, I don't have the time, we don't have the resources. And he wouldn't let go, so I finally said, okay, we'll do it. And so I said, we'll start next Wednesday. And we moved some cases, and we created a Wednesday 1-hour block where I had. That's all it takes. Convince a judge to clear an hour, identify some veterans to put in at that hour, and you have your court. Now, it will grow as you get started, but you don't need to go anymore. Yes, I've been given an order to sit down, but I'm going to take a couple more minutes, Peter, if you don't mind. Thanks, guys. So that's what you need to get started. And then there is a funding mechanism out there, and it is RCW .14.460. Those who have it know it's called the treatment sales tax. It's an authorization by the legislature to local jurisdictions, counties, that they can impose on themselves a 0.1% sales tax to fund mental health programs in their jurisdiction. That program in Thurston County fully funds Veterans Court and Mental Health Court, as well as a whole host of other services in the county. Now, a lot of counties don't have it, to include Pierce County. Oh, by the way, the home of JBLM, one of the largest military installations in the country. Now, why don't they have it? Because their commissioners don't want to take a tax vote. They think it's political suicide to authorize this tax. And I've told them, and I will tell you, so you can tell your commissioners in counties that don't have this, that calculus is wrong. If you support this tax that supports services for veterans through this program, they can run on that. That will be one of the things they say is, I supported the treatment sales tax, which funds Veterans Court and veteran services in our county. And that will be something that will get votes for them rather than drive votes away. So that's my pitch, is get out there. I'll be happy to answer questions either now or afterwards. I also have, not enough, but I grabbed all the brochures we had left when I was taking off from Olympia. So those from jurisdictions that don't have Veterans Court, if you want to come up and get a brochure, it sort of describes it. You can show your judge or show your county commissioner or whomever. Feel free to come on up and I'll be happy to let you have the brochure.
What happens to the charge?
The question is, what happens to the charge on graduation? That's a great question. It depends on what's negotiated between the defense counsel and the prosecutor. So for a lot of the folks, the charge is dismissed. Sometimes it just means that the jail time will remain suspended and nothing further will happen. And you know, one of the things that's really interesting to me is I've had people come in and plead guilty to a charge and have to do jail time like 6 months and still want to come into the program in spite of having to do 6 months of jail ahead of time. And that's how much they want it. So those who are thinking about, you know, do you really have the need? I guarantee you have the need, because there are veterans out there, even if they have to do jail time, they so want to be connected to the services that are offered in this program. Yes, sir.
Pardon if you address that, what's the big difference between, say, Veterans Court and then Mental Health Court and Drug Court, especially with the same staff? What differentiates them other than the population concerned?
Question is, what's the difference between Veterans Court, Mental Health Court, and Drug Court? And I'm going to answer that. You know, I alluded to it initially, which is Mental Health Court you don't have any service connection between the diagnosis and what the genesis of the diagnosis is. So you can have a veteran who had pre-existing mental health issues before they went into the military. They're not going to come into Veterans Court. So Mental Health Court is for all the other folks who aren't eligible for Veterans Court, basically. And then Drug Court is typically drug courts don't want to take people who have mental illness. Now, I recognize that a lot of people who have chemical dependency programs have some degree of mental illness. But if it's severe, I know in Thurston County, the drug court says, oh, you have to go to mental health court. So we do all the co-occurring disorder stuff. Drug court takes a different approach since they typically aren't addressing mental health issues in drug court. They have a very rigid format. You do this, this happens. You do this, this happens. I can tell you that doesn't work for folks with mental illness. Life isn't radiated like that. You have to have flexibility. You have to look at each situation and take it for what it is, who the person is, and then assess what you're going to do in response to that. So the drug court model, it's the same general model, but the drug court philosophy doesn't work in mental health courts. Yes, ma'am.
You had have anybody who's graduated?
The question is on recidivism. Are there reoffenses after graduation? We have not had anybody reoffend after graduation. Now, this is anecdotal because we only have 9 years of evidence so far. We have had people that we've terminated reoffend, but significantly at a much lesser rate than the general population. So general population reoffense rates now are somewhere in the 55% rate. So somebody commits a crime who goes through the normal process, over 55% of them are likely to reoffend. If they come into one of the therapeutic treatment courts, that number is going to drop down to below 20%. If they come into Veterans Court, that number is going to drop down really low. So that's the sales pitch that you want to give your commissioners. John.
Your Honor, just one caveat of that program is that those who do graduate, a substantial amount of them become mentors to those who are currently going through the program. And a lot of the vet organizations in your community will also provide mentors while they're going through that program.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that, thank you, John. So that's a great way, if, for example, you're in a county where there is a Veterans Court, go walk in, find out when it is, and say, hey, I'd like to sit in and help. And being a mentor is a great assistance. That is, mentor means you're just there to talk to the folks who are in the court, and they love having members of the community to speak with. Yes, sir.
We've seen thousands of vets in the last 10, 12 years come through the bunker. This is a huge problem, a huge issue that this county has to address. We're pretty limited in what we can do with the bunker, with our funds, with the manpower we have. But this comes up time and time again. Veterans come home, they make a mistake, they get arrested. I think the biggest question is how do you educate the legal system when a veteran goes in and gets incarcerated, starting with the police officers, the district attorney, the judges. I've gone to court numerous times and wanting to pass a note to the judge explaining that this guy is a wounded hero, and you just need to look at his situation a little bit differently. It's really hard to do that. I would urge everybody in this room to try and get this county to take a really good look at getting a veterans court. It's so needed.
Yeah. All right, so first make an appointment to go in and see Judge Nakata. She's in Superior Court here. And she and I go way back, and tell her I sent you, and tell her you're not leaving until she agrees to start the discussion on having a Veterans Court in Chelan County. Because you're right. I know there are a lot of veterans here, and I know you need one. And I'm going to guess, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to guess that Chelan County has not authorized a treatment sales tax. And they should. And, you know, and this offer stands for anybody. If you get a conversation going and you would like me to come over and speak to whomever, I would be happy to do so. Because we need, okay, so here's where we have veterans courts in the state. Thurston County, Mason County, Clark County, King County, Spokane County, Kitsap County, and the cities of Seattle and Lakewood. Those are our veterans courts. If you're not in one of those jurisdictions, you don't have a veterans court. Every county ought to have a veterans court. They should. So that's my offer.
You know, if I had another asking, how do you get their son in veterans? Could we go to the website to do that? Does that be?
Yeah, tell them to come over to Thurston County, commit a crime, and they're in. I'll give them a go to jail card. Yes, sir?
Bonifacio Dominguez from Sultan County. But I get a chance to go to Idaho and work with the Veterans Court. One of the issues that is coming up is non-veterans, judges, shrinks, helping. The vets will not. They are having an issue with that. I ran the numbers on 6%. You said 10%. The savings varies from $1,700 in this area up to $54,000 in California per inmate. So there's a savings right there for whoever sets up the court. Asotin County does not have, but they bend over backwards if it's mentioned. I went and talked to the prosecuting attorney, and I said, can you tell me what percentage is in our court? He said, I can't tell you that. I said, can't or won't? He said, I can't. He said, I can tell you what their FBI number is, where they live, what color their eyes are, but there is nothing on what we fill out that says, is he a veteran? So that's some of the issues that are coming back in Idaho.
Right, so what you want to do, particularly on that last issue, so thank you, that goes back to the identifying the veteran, and that should happen at booking. The officer should know to ask that, and what they should ask is not, are you a veteran? Because that question will chill the response from some people who don't, for whatever reason, don't want to acknowledge they were a veteran. You ask, have you served in the military in any capacity? So you ask that question, and then you develop your group from that, and you keep the data on who's answered that question in the affirmative. And then you begin to know who you're talking with. And I guarantee you, in Asotin County, you have veterans in your jail. And you can identify them if you get, so start with the sheriff and get them to start asking that question. Yes, sir.
I see this is being recorded. Are we going to be able to get film of this sent out?
I'm not going to get in the way of that.
Yeah, on the back of your program, you'll actually see a web link there, serving those who served. That's where we'll have all of or a majority of the PowerPoint presentations uploaded, and a large majority of the breakout sessions that we're recording will all be uploaded to there. We're also live streaming some to our Facebook page right now, Washington Department of Veterans Affairs, and then we'll upload to our YouTube channel as well. And we're using hashtag serving those who serve if you want to follow along on social media. So yes, this will be available after the conference.
Okay, I'm going to pass it on, otherwise I'm going to take all morning. So I'll be available for further questions. Thank you, Judge. Can you hear me out there okay?
Yes.
All right, great.
I'm Dr. Applenow. Most of my patients call me Dr. Bard, and it doesn't butcher my last name. I've been with the Department of Corrections for going on 16 years now.